Hi, this is Amy from Good Food on Earth, and my guest today is Stephanie Kozak. Did I say
Yes.
that right? Yeah. And I want her to introduce herself. She's a wonderful woman who has been providing a lovely space for children. And this is as part of our solution podcast for the kids specifically. We're going to focus on reimagining what education is, looking at how children learn and what parents can do to better promote the health of their kids during this time and to be effective advocates for them as well. So thank you for joining me, Stephanie.
Thank you, Amy, for having me. I will say this, I'm so passionate about this. So if I ramble, please just say, oh, let's get back on task. It's one of the most beautiful things that I truly believe that when children are connected and very passionate about their learning, they're always on task. We don't have to redirect them to be on task because their dreams are being fulfilled kind of right in front of them. So that's a beautiful thing. So quickly, I'll just say that sort of my background is in special education. It is sort of early childhood education. I really did a lot of work within the school board for about 7 years, focusing on life skills and redirecting, I guess, children to conform to our own expectations that we think that they need to do inside the school board. So having said that, when I was there, I have 4 children who were, slowly getting diagnosed with different sort of, I guess I'm going to air quote here, labels, if you want to
Mhm.
say. I had my older child who was considered ADHD with Asperger's syndrome. And then my second boy would be the same. He was oppositional defiance disorder with an anxiety disorder. And then my third son was born with, he was a preemie. And while this was all kind of new to me, I was really focused on him because he was born with a brain injury. So what would
Mhm.
happen? He had an infection in his brain, and his sort of white and gray matter was a little bit messed up with some cysts. And I was like, I don't really know what this means. But to me, I just saw a little beautiful boy that was, funny and silly. And I didn't see the labels. And I didn't see the labels in my older children either. But when my son was about 3 and he went to the neurologist and they were like, this is going to be really hard. He's got developmental coordination disorder. We think there's a lot of damage within his frontal lobe and his frontal cortex. And I was like, I'm not a neuroscience. I'm like, what does that mean?
Mhm.
And there was just like right away, like he was 4 and they're like, he's probably going to be an addict. He's probably going to get in a lot of trouble.
Wow.
He'll never drive. And I'm like, he's 4.
Mhm.
Like he's 4. So in the back of your mind as a mother, you're like, oh my gosh. So I'm like envisioning a 17-year-old addict who is like stealing cars. And
Mhm.
all I see is this blonde little boy with these beautiful little freckles who, you know, ate a little differently, and I was like, I got to go back to school and I got to help teach these 3 boys. Like, I need to know, like, a teacher can't do this all herself. Like, that's impossible. And as I quit my job and I went with him every day in kindergarten, just because when I went through their meetings, they're like, well, he doesn't really have any behaviors. So he's never going to really get an EA. And I was like, so then what? Right. So I thought I'm going to help her. As I was there, I started really getting to love the idea of watching children learn. I always just loved it as a mom,
Mhm.
and didn't see what I did as anything special. I just was very free spirited. My children ran around with, naked bodies and rubber boots and dug a hole in the ground. And I didn't think it was anything out of the ordinary. They were sensory seekers at that time. I didn't know what that meant, but I thought, who cares if they're covered in mud? They're happy,
Mhm.
they're thriving, they love each other, and they love me.
Mhm.
So, yay, win. As I was in there, and really starting to learn the, navigation of IRPC meetings, or an IEP meeting, or what that meant, or a psychometric assessment.
Mhm.
Every time one of my children got them, I was like, they look really smart to me. So they're not
Yeah.
really great at social stuff, but they really seem smart. You guys just don't know how to treat them or teach them.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go back to school and get all this stuff. And I'm going to go to the school board and I'm going to help facilitate children like mine
Mhm.
ways to learn that isn't a notebook because none of my kids could write.
Mhm.
They were given iPads or
Yeah.
technology, and which is amazing. Don't get me wrong. I love the idea of them being able to facilitate work. But then the more I would see the facilitation, I'm like, Nobody's uploading your work onto your laptop. They're giving you a paper. Nobody's doing this, but I've been in these meetings. So then I was that mama bear who was like, I knew what the meetings meant inside and out. I knew what a C claim meant. I knew how much a child that was, identified as special needs meant and how much money that was them. And I was like, wait, this has got to change. Well, let's just say after me being in the school board, it's a big wired web of all kinds of intricate stuff that we as really low on the totem pole don't have any idea about.
Yeah.
We really don't as parents. We really don't. Even me, because I had I had 3 job titles. I was an early childhood educator, educational support, and in behavioral management and life skills technician. And even then on that, I was working, with school board superintendents and all kinds of stuff. You're like, you're getting one information, and really we're human, right? So we are creating our own programs sometimes and our own traumas or whatever is in our own self-being, that then we are trying to create a system inside a system that has so many systems. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
That we aren't on one page. And there's too many of us. I would always say I'd go into for almost 6 hours a day. I should be in that meeting with those parents. And it was like, I would really cause a stir because I was like, this makes no sense. The CERT saw the child for an hour this month. How are they having a wonderful, they don't have enough observations or enough interconnection with their energy and interpersonal relationships to have an opinion. So for me, it was really, it made me really sick, to be honest. I really got physically sick. I was really sick for 5 years while I was there. And I chose to take every little part that I learned at the school board that I liked, and then really change the stuff that I didn't. Whether I considered, and this is my own opinion, and I will say this as disclosure and open up honesty, not every teacher is like this. Not every CERT is like this. This is just really my experience, my children's experience, because they were treated like really awful. They were coming home sick. My son was self-harming himself by chewing his arms and his furniture. My daughter was constantly urinating herself. My other child was completely, beat up and abused on the bus and at the park. And my other child was constantly written up and suspended, just because they advocated for what they thought they needed at school. And that's not fair. So like I'll say, I really am not talking about everybody. So to that, we are all on our own journey, and I honor everybody for where they are in that.
I want to put a point in here that I think is really salient that you touched on, which was the centralization, this concept of having a central control system, which is what you're pointing out is that's really a fallacy, because you'll have people who are in these upper circles that are then sending down signals to say you have to do this at the lower levels. But it's like playing a thing of telephone too, right? It's got to pass through all these channels, and then like you said, we're all human beings, we're not machines. So it's coming through different people, and then it's going to be interpreted in different ways. And what you've put together is this this pyramid that is not really healthily functioning, instead of a more organic thing where I was doing a bit of research into, how education originated, like with schools, and they were all small, all local, all unique in their setup, because that's what worked in that time and place for those particular people, which is really, it's interesting to think about. And we try to think, well, we have to go by the system, but like you're saying, what system is it? There's systems within systems within systems that are really being changed at the human level, and we're not really noticing that. We just blank think it's a system.
It's true. And then that's why, so it's a perfect, so what I created 3 years ago, I did nonprofit sort of support camp for children in lower poverty lines, and maybe in some trauma inducing situations, or maybe in some child care, like so children's aid care, and maybe supporting those families and helping. And when I saw it on a bigger level of connection, I would see these children that maybe might have been very aggressive and angry because
Mhm.
their mom is taken away from them, or their dad doesn't live with them, or
Mhm.
they didn't have enough money to pay for the new shoes that everybody's wearing.
Yeah.
When it just came to connection, all those other things didn't matter anymore. So
Mm.
I took all of that in everything that I learned in the school and realized that, so there's, in applied behavioral analysis, there's like ABC, which means antidote, like an antecedent, a behavior, and a consequence. I
Mhm.
truly believe it's the complete opposite. It should be an antecedent. Yes, I want to know what is triggering this behavior, what energy, what trauma might be showing up for a child, and what that behavior means and what it looks like, and honoring that behavior, because excitement and aggression are the same thing, right? Like our body is very excited and we could be angry and it could show up as the same thing. So
Mhm.
sometimes we'll label aggression as aggression, but really I'm just excited and my hands are like, whoa,
Mhm.
and I like hit you really hard on your back because I'm really excited, right? Or a high five, like that was really hard. And then I believe that the C should be connection. When we reconnect to what that level is, then we can kind of find out really to the truth of the core of what the behavior is really trying to tell me,
Mhm.
instead of us assuming our own interpretation of what we think we've seen on this book or this hierarchy, right?
Mhm.
So I really created this alternative holistic school that is exactly that. It's in the
Yeah.
present moment. There isn't a said curriculum, even though we have been working on mass and matter for the last 2 weeks and created the
Yeah.
most amazing science fair projects. And we exploded a rocket outside. We made our own crystals. We melted crayons. We
Mhm.
created a catapult, all kinds of amazing stuff. And it's in this moment in time that is completely flexible. It's always adaptable. And if there's a crisis that's happening in our planet or on this world, then we're able to talk about it in the here and now
Mhm.
without having to be like, oh, well, this isn't in my curriculum at this moment.
Right.
Like even like, say, February's Black History Month, and everybody's going to say, well, this is when we're going to do it. But what about the rest of the year? Why not? It is not like, or, Aboriginal teachings. There's so many um, contradictory and sort of offensive ways of teaching that, because it's like, oh, it matters on this day or it
Mhm.
matters on this day, but it should matter all days, not just on orange shirt day, right?
Mhm.
Or bullying day shouldn't just matter on pink shirt day.
Right.
And I feel like these things should be integrated constantly, not our day. You
Mhm.
know, their day matters, and we forget what it feels like to be a child, what it feels like to be heard as a child, and then also dealing with our own child wounds.
Mhm.
So when we grow up as adults, we don't even reflect on that stuff anymore because we're like, I'm grown up and I have a job. Right? But you're still inside there. You're a child. And one things that I remember I heard, I don't remember when, I think about 5 years ago, we have two times for that relationship: as a child with our own parent,
Mhm.
and then as a parent with our own children.
Mhm.
Whether you're a teacher who has children or not, that relationship is still going to be in there
Yeah.
subconsciously. So I
Mhm.
think if you don't think about it that as a whole, then somehow we can displace our own energy or our own traumas, right? Like, 'cause
Mhm.
I know I had all kinds of traumatic experiments, like at the school system on
Yeah.
those school levels, and for myself as a youngster. So I really can sit with that energy of a child and how they show up. And my sister took the last Fruit Loop bowl of
Mhm.
cereal, and my brother then took the apple that I wanted, and I was left with the banana.
Mhm.
Just throw your whole day off.
Yeah.
And if we don't get, oh, I get you. Oh, my
Mhm.
brother would eat all the waffles, right? So really showing up for them in that capacity, and that will go on to what we're talking about, how our parents can help them.
Mhm.
But our holistic program is really that. It's just intention and purpose.
Mhm.
It's showing where the kids are at that particular day, and really going with their flow. And
Mhm.
we intuitively guide our own teaching strategies, how, in comparison to how they show up.
Yeah.
So how they are that day. If it's a sunny, gorgeous day, I can guarantee you it's going to be the most beautiful, musical, gorgeous day that's full of art and love and compassion. But if
Mhm.
it's a miserable, rainy day, or someone had a really bad morning, that may change the dynamics. And maybe, that means we're all laying on the floor and looking out at the sky, and we're just chilling and visualizing a beautiful day,
Mhm.
right? Talking about that as a whole.
Mhm.
So I'm always like, the learning is going to happen after. Math's always integrated, social studies is always integrated,
Mhm.
but our emotional and social well-being is coming first and foremost, so that our children can grow into these wonderful advocates for
Mhm.
their own self and not think that their label is something bad,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think I have three, and I'm like, my anxiety disorder, that just means I'm feeling something off, and I want to honor that. It's my gut telling me something, and my whole body's responding to it. So
Yeah. And what
yeah.
I like about that, what you're talking about with it's starting with the dynamics of what the kids are bringing to the table. It's that tuning in where instead of this was an issue I thought with going through education myself was there's a reason why kids are bored or they don't want to pay attention. And a lot of the stuff, it's not immediately applicable. But when you shift the focus where instead, where, you come to school, you're sitting in a desk and they say you have to pay attention to this subject. So now no matter where you are, you've got to conform into this particular space the way that you're being told to. But if you start with feeling out where the kids are, and then you can incorporate those lessons into that, it becomes immediately applicable. All the stuff they're learning, they'll remember it so well, and they'll start to, think about it and explore it on their own because they're like, oh yeah, I could still learn while I'm in this state, even if I'm not feeling that great because it's a cloudy, gloomy day. Then it's okay. I'm not horrible because I can't, fit into one particular way of learning. I can adapt it, which is really neat. Yeah.
Mhm. And it's beautiful because, and then something else they miss is that those opportunities to teach them tools,
Hmm.
right? Like those opportunities to teach them, being like, how many children can really say, I don't feel this great today because my brother took the apple?
Hmm.
They're not. They don't even, by the time they've driven to school, waited in the school ground, lined up, show it's still there. They haven't worked through that feeling of like, maybe it's jealousy. My brother always gets the apple. My mom always gives him the apple, whatever, how it might be in their own interpretation of what's happening and their own perception. Nobody's telling them a tool on how to work through that. It's usually, oh, suck it up, buttercup, get over it, it's just an apple. Whatever it might be, we are not even understanding that language is, disempowering them, because they're like, to them that might be their, like, yeah, that's a huge thing, that apple,
Right.
that's a
Hmm.
huge thing to them. Like, I just had someone pay for my coffee when I was on my way here, and I was like, oh, thank you. So I made sure I paid for the person in the back, right?
Hmm.
And I'm, grown up driving in my car. That's like someone giving me an apple as a
Yeah.
child.
Hmm.
Like someone, my brother saying, actually, Stephanie, you know what? I'm going to give you this apple today. Because I
Hmm.
noticed that every other day you're like, oh, okay, brother. And, you're like, oh, I'm going to give you the apple. And seeing it from their perspective always, because
Yeah.
I think we give children a higher expectation than we give ourselves.
Hmm.
And a lot of us would be like, if you were in your, like, think about your staff room or wherever, your work room, your water cooler area, whatever per se, and there was a basket of fresh fruit that someone gave you. You're like, in the morning, I'm like, oh, I want that apple. Then all of a sudden you go around your day and you're like, oh, I forgot to go back to the staff room to get that apple. And you're like, you get there and there's only oranges left,
Yeah.
right? You're going to be like, man, you're probably going to be bummed for the rest of the afternoon that you were like, I didn't grab that juicy apple, and blame yourself. I shouldn't have got distracted, whatever it might have been. But
Yeah.
really, it's like something that you're like, oh, well, okay, reflect on that one, Stephanie. Maybe you should have grabbed that apple right away and been selfish, or whatever it might be that comes up for you. So,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I wanna ask, we talked a bit about, you mentioned some examples of what like kids do with your school, but I wonder if you could give a couple more examples that you've seen where you've noticed that the way that you have it set up, the kids become their own like guide for learning. They just, it's something that, kids love to learn, but when they're put through the system, it becomes like a chore, and parents think that they have to put a whole like structure around, like say if they decided to take their kids out of school at this point and they think there's going to be so much work involved, like to put a structure and to have all the curriculum and dot 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 and make sure they do it and make sure they're accountable and all this stuff. But but I wonder if you could share some of your experiences with the kids and how they've gone about learning.
So I always kind of say, I went to a seminar one time and the gentleman said, if I gave all of you adults a grade 11 math test, how many of you would pass? And it sat with me. I think this was about 3 years ago I went and I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. So I think one of the things we have to really wrap our head around is, will all of the things that they are, so you can get them curriculum online, you can
Mhm.
order them, I'm pretty sure you can get them in your own hard copy if you like. Everything that you can pick apart in that curriculum, say grade 1 all the way up, what meaning would it have for my child as an individual child? So we're speaking, like I have one of, so my son Forrest, who has Asperger's, he is like analytical, everything is lined up, he enjoys structure, he enjoys staying on certain tasks, and then he loves taking things apart, and he also loves nature.
Yeah.
So to pick a box for one child, well, he has autism, so that means he must love structure. He
Mhm.
doesn't have social schemas. He doesn't understand social cues. Some of them, yes, but for us to do a one size fits all box, I think is it's unfortunate, to be honest, because what we really need to do is think about what is the most meaningful experience that your child would have that would stay them on task without you constantly propositioning or bribing or coercing. You want them to wake up in the morning and they're like, oh my gosh, I have to finish making my catapult, and I got to get plastic bands, and I'm going to do that, and I got to go in the kitchen, and they're like little wonderful mad scientists. You
Mhm.
want their brain to be so passionate about it that they'll come back to the other stuff. And you might not even realize that, let's say your child really struggles in math, and that is like torture.
Mhm.
Would you like think about it when you were younger? Did it mean like, I don't know, let's say it was that math test that you remember in grade 5 and you studied for 7 days straight and you still
Mhm.
got a horrible mark and you felt horrible about it? Are you using it today? Like, did you
Right.
use that trigger? Are you using trigonometry right now, or bedmas? I don't even know what they call it anymore, but are you using that at this particular moment in your life? So picking out those pieces, because right now, in all fairness, the way that our planet is, and all kinds of crisis and division, and I'm sure navigating social and emotional stuff that could be going on in everybody's house,
Mhm.
another fight for education is only going to sort of add the division inside your own home.
Mhm.
So right now, at this particular time, they're not missing anything.
Mhm.
I think we need to really put our mind around that. Our children are not missing anything. If we think back to like hundreds of years ago, just like you said, there was little pods of places that you learned. If your parent was a farmer, you learned from the elders. You learned from your parent how to make, let's say, milk and bread and how to farm and grow food.
Mhm.
That was your learning pod. Maybe you had a father that was a blacksmith, and that was your learning pod. Or somebody that built homes, or someone that was in starting to build banks back
Mhm.
then, right? So every learning pod had a different subject, let's
Mhm.
say. So think about the subjects that your child is the most interested in, and then you can integrate little bits of math in there. We had
Mhm.
children that were making catapult. They had to find out how much, they made a whole measuring stick on how far the catapult will shoot their items. So we had
Mhm.
physics. We also had matter. We
Mhm.
also had math and geometry, right? And we also had like just linear, like, right?
Mhm.
Because we had linear like tape measure that they glued. I don't see it at the moment because I actually am at my school right now. So all of those things were happening. And then appropriateness, because there was a teamwork. They had two teamworks, two of them on their team and working through that, who did what, how much work, who did too much work, how to divvy up out the work. And all of this happened over like almost a 5-day process. And
Mhm.
that was their focus. And it wasn't thinking, okay, they're not doing math, they're not doing this, we're not doing that, because when they want to do it, it'll come. So
Mhm.
don't overthink it as a mom and dad. We are their first teachers.
Mm-hmm.
We don't realize it, right? Like we taught them like what appropriate smiling and love and affection was. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we taught them food and nutrition, right? And how to like, we allowed them to explore walking and exploring their, you know, environment on the carpet or in the backyard and watering the flowers. So we've been doing it all along. We just are afraid to give ourselves the label of teacher, but you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to. Don't give yourself the label. Just say, I'm just a nurturing guide for you, my little love. That's all. And I'm here to provide a book or whatever you ask for me. I'm just going to help it in a wonderful, safe, and healthy manner.
Yeah, I wonder, just before we got on, you were telling me about the difference between Stephanie and Miss Kozak that you did with your students. And I want to touch on this because our next topic is going to be what parents can do to promote the health of their children. And it's really fascinating. This, what you told me, reminded me a bit of an experiment that's called the still face experiment. And I don't know if you know, but yeah, with
Mhm.
the young babies and
Yep.
the mom's face, she just goes totally blank, doesn't show any expression with her newborn. And the child starts to be like, what's going on? So I wonder if you could tell us about your experiment with the difference between the kids and Stephanie and the kids and Miss Kozak.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I didn't think I would ever do such a wild experiment. I do run a lot on intuition. So how, like how I said, how the room is. So our room was very high energy. We had, you know, we've been, this is our third year running and we've evolved. I think it's very important as an educator that I'm constantly evolving with the children, with their needs, with who's here at the program at specific time.
Mhm.
And that specific day, we have, I think, about 23 kids, and we have a lot of different learning styles. And I think I didn't touch base on the whole special education because we are special. And if you look into the definition of what special means, it just means unusual or different.
Mhm.
And then education is somewhere that, you know, you can even do it as intuitive, like education, right? So something that is, it's just, and can be enlightening in any way. If you say that, you know, you went, um, to Tibet and watched a bunch of people milk cows. It could be the
Mhm.
most beautiful, enlightened thing, but you're getting educated at the same
Yeah.
time,
Mhm.
right? And I think we forget that looking at the children in an intuitive, enlightening way with magic and purpose,
Mhm.
that they don't even remember, they don't even know the difference between the education. So my
Mhm.
test, I guess, or experiment was Miss Kozak is in the school board and she's following her rules and her protocol and policies. So it was, you know, I'm telling the kids what to do, how to sit down. Here's your worksheet. You don't talk. Your water bottle stays on your table. You ask to go to the bathroom. You line up for outdoor time. You have 20 minutes to eat, 20 minutes to play, and that's it. And there's always a time schedule that stops your play or your passion or your energy, right? So I was trying to show the difference of that, you know, when our energy gets very excited and we're forgetting our purpose or
Mhm.
an intention, right? Because I'm always asking kids, what's your intention and purpose with that item right now? If you give me a wonderful and intention and purpose and you used a whole bottle of glue, amen. Hi. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Ooh, great intention and purpose, right? But then if you're, like we said, if our body doesn't know what's happening, it doesn't know where all this energies come from. And children feel the collective, right?
Mhm.
And I can't even, you know, I know what I feel with the collective. So I had to sage myself so much on Thursday because I know something was happening with people.
Mhm.
You know, there was a lot of stuff going on. So when we lose our focus, like how many times you walk upstairs in you're in the bedroom and you're like, why am I up here?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know why. You go back downstairs, you're like, oh yeah, I went to go get a pair of socks, right? So that's the same thing that the kids are doing. So then all they, you know how to express it right now is maybe horseplay or tag or running around or being silly or bugging someone, if you want to say. I'm like air quoting that because these are the labels that we give, right? And when they had to sit with that, they were like, the room was quiet, right? Everyone was quiet on task. It's very feasible to manipulate or coerce children into sitting still and shutting up. Like, no, like I'm saying that very vulgarly, but it's not how we run our school. But I wanted them to be able to sit and reflect on the difference of them being in charge and then someone else being in charge.
Mhm.
And even though I really expressed it that this is role play, this Miss Kozak is exaggerating myself very big, because I really wasn't even like that too much in the school board, because
Mhm.
like I said, I was always in trouble. Like I'd be doing a shake in the line. I'm like, okay, we all gotta wait in line. Let's shake it out. Shake it out, right? And they'd be like, you can't do that. And I'm like, why? They're in the line. But for them to see that, they were so reflective later on how they, and I was like, tell me what you didn't like about Miss Kozak.
Mhm.
Express to me what you didn't like, because I'm not taking offense, because I know who I am as an individual. And when we really know that in our whole core,
Mhm.
then we're going to be able to, even in vulnerable states, because I was saying I feel like the room is out of control and Ms. Kozak has to come out. Let's just see how she feels. How
Mhm.
would we feel if this is how our day went? And it
Mhm.
was only for an hour and a half, but the experiment was for them to be able to reflect and be like, oh, I don't think I like being told how to learn. I don't want to be told when to go to the bathroom, or when I can drink water, or when I can go outside, or when I can eat, because none
Mhm.
of us do.
Yeah.
I woke up at 12:30 last night and ate half a package of snickerdoodles. They were delicious cookies, and I went back to bed. If someone was, came out of my closet and said, "You can't do that, go back to bed," I'd be like, "Who are you? Get out of here!" Right? So I think we giving them back that avenue to look and reflect it back at me. It was beautiful, because then they were able to. The next day, I wrote what I liked about the school board and didn't, and what I like about the village and what I don't.
Yeah.
Right? And when I looked at what they wrote, there was very common similarities between
Mhm.
all of them. A lot of them didn't like the school board because they were told what to do, and there was a lot of bullies, and nobody
Mm.
heard their voice.
Right.
And that the school board, so it was interesting because it was in like we did like a four kind of, right?
Mhm.
And then the polar opposite was at the village. Everybody listens to me. Everybody's honored and valued. We're constantly taught about respect and love and compassion for each other and our planet and humanity, right? Because we talk a lot about energy and how my energy will affect yours, and
Mhm.
yours will affect your husband, and your husband's might affect your kids and
Yep.
then his mother, right? So this beautiful ripple effect. And then the opposite of like what they were kind of missing is a little bit more quiet time.
Mhm.
And I was like, beautiful. So I'll sit with that, reflect on it this weekend. And then on Monday morning, we're going to sit and we have these morning gatherings. And it's a truth kind of restorative circle where we're
Mhm.
really talking our needs and our wants, and how we as a collective in our community of the school can fix that together.
Mhm.
I am not the leader. Like, I guess I shouldn't say that. I am the leader, I guess the adult on site,
Yeah.
but I'm not the be all end all.
Mhm.
I'm not the truth seeker. I'm not the person who knows everything. I might have more schooling than they do at this particular moment in life experience, but I'm also humbled by their brilliance.
Mhm.
So, really valuing what they have to share with me. My own daughter wrote this beautiful thing, and I was like, whoa, I had no idea that's how she felt.
Mhm.
But this experiment, where some people might like, well, that was kind of harsh. You controlled the kids for an hour and a half. Or I'm like, but they knew it was part of the plan,
Yeah.
right? Like I presented it to them. I said, this is what's going to happen for the next hour and a half. We were going to pretend and role play that we are in a structured public school system.
Mhm.
I want you to value also the community that we've created.
Mhm.
I want us also to value and put our own intention and purpose in this space, because otherwise, really, in all fairness, you don't have to be in the space. Like
Mhm.
real life consequences,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think we forget to tell kids that, if you're 12 and you like to go around and peg someone at the back of the head, and that becomes your habit and it gets your
Yeah.
reaction that you're looking for, and someone's like, oh, stop doing that. You're like, okay, I got my need
Right.
fed.
Mhm.
No one's telling them the real life consequence if you continue that as an 18-year-old
Mhm.
or even a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Someone might hurt you and turn around and defend themselves,
Yeah.
or B, you could go to jail.
Yeah.
So it's
Mhm.
like, why aren't we having these real life discussions, right? Like without fear and without coercion. Like we don't want to force them to not do that. We want to find out why they need to slap someone up in the back of the head, so that when they grow up, it's not about because I don't really fit in mainstream society very well. And I've always known that about myself, but I also understand, and I hate using this word, but it's true, how to manipulate the
Hmm.
system back at itself.
Yeah.
We are told all of these, I know I have to wear my seatbelt. A, it's safe, and B, I'll get a ticket.
Hmm.
Can I like say, well, that's it? I could fight it and say it's my own choice if I want to fly out my window or not. But also understanding either the judgment of society, right? And then understanding my sort of my part in it and how it might affect somebody else,
Hmm.
right? Like how my behaviors would affect society, and then understanding, I don't wear shoes half the time, and actually my hair is pretty normal at the moment. But if I was to go into something, I'm not going to not wear shoes and um, not have a proper shirt on because that's something I do, and I'm like very free flowing at a special banquet,
Hmm.
right? Like I need to understand that when I go to a special banquet, I might have to dress up, put
Hmm.
makeup on. Actually, I did my hair today because I was having it with you, right? Because some of these society things that we need to learn, but understanding why. Not
Hmm.
because it's people will think you're pretty. No, because I respect and honor myself at
Hmm.
this particular moment in time, right? I want to respect and honor, let's say I went to a government building, respect and honor the government building because I don't want to be seen as someone, because I don't want to say most, but there's a lot of people still under this shield that this is what we see in society, right? Like you see all of these studies about like a homeless person or a person, what is that one guy thinking? What would you do? I think there's one of that guy, like, would you step into a child being abused? Or
Hmm.
that stuff is real life, right? Like, depending on how you see and where you are in your own life in this timeline, how you would respond to certain things. So, understanding that, I use Walmart analogy all the time, that I can't go into Walmart, buy whatever I want, and go in front of all the line because I've got stuff to do,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Do I feel like when I'm inside Walmart line, I'm like, oh my gosh, so I sing in the line. I'm very
Hmm.
mindful and present in that particular time. And people are like, oh God, this woman's so weird every time I see her. She's got like, I wear like a cape. And they're like, she's a cape. She's got like dreadlocks. She's a homeless person. I get followed in Walmart all the time because they think I'm a homeless person.
Hmm.
And that's something that's not going to go away
Hmm.
anytime soon. So for us to really get children to understand that and see differences and have the ability to reflect on it, just like they've reflected with Stephanie and Miss Kozak.
Hmm.
Like we need to be able to teach them how to have those moments of reflection. How did I contribute? How did they contribute? And
Hmm.
what energy mashup are we making?
Hmm.
And when to walk away. Because one of the things I teach the kids very, very early on at the program is that we have a four structured kind of behavioral sort of support idea. You tell the person how you feel and what's making you feel,
Hmm.
right? Like you tell them to stop. Like, I don't feel good when you hurt my body. I don't feel good
Hmm.
when you say those names. Please stop. And
Hmm.
if they choose not to, the next one is your sovereign being. You can say, actually, I don't want to give you any more of my energy right now because you keep taking my Lego guy and crushing it.
Hmm.
I'm going to take my Legos and I'm going to go on the other side of the room and I'm going to play with somebody else or by myself.
Hmm.
And giving them the strength to really understand that it's okay to do that. Doesn't mean I'm mad or that I don't like you at this particular moment in time. I don't, because you're wrecking my Lego guys.
Hmm.
Third is, now if that child walked all the way across the room and crushed their Lego toy,
Hmm.
now you're asking for support. Hi,
Hmm.
Stephanie. So and so is keeps coming and crushing my Lego toys.
Hmm.
We know probably maybe he's jealous because that Lego toy is not as good as his Lego toy. He took the blue Lego piece. Whatever might be showing up for that little boy, then we have a restorative kind of circle. We're
Hmm.
like, instantly, how are you contributing? How are you contributing? Okay, what choice can we make? Let's now figure out the choice and the option, vote on it, and we're done.
Hmm.
Now, number 4, that's been done. We've thought we've got to the bottom of it. And now that child, when he thinks nobody's not looking, he's going back over and he kicks it over.
Yeah.
That little boy has the opportunity now to go back and do the exact same thing.
Hmm.
Lots of people don't understand. They're like, that's really cruel, or they may assume it is.
Hmm.
But I really kind of see it from the perspective, if I don't know how it feels
Hmm.
to have my Lego toy broken, can I really put a tangible feeling, emotion, memory to it? I
Mhm.
can't. Or hopefully at the third stage, they say, well, my brother always kicks over my Lego toys. And then you can turn it back. Well, actually, how did that really feel when your
Yeah.
brother's doing that to your Lego toys?
Mhm.
And usually, hopefully, it stops at the third step.
Mhm.
But at the fourth step, that, and then that's when there'll be the final kind of restorative kind of moment, being like, see, it really actually doesn't feel very well when little Johnny does that to you, but you've already done it to him 4 times.
Yeah.
Imagine how he must be feeling. And he shared how he felt, and we didn't listen and honor his feelings, right? So it really is very tangible on a very open conversation without judgment,
Mhm.
without resentment and holding it. So we forgive right away, little Paul. Right
Mhm.
after that happens, all right, Paul, let's see if we can make a better, even better Lego structure together now.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then neither of you want to break it because you're so proud of it.
Mhm.
So there's never like healing and being like, oh, Paul's coming to school today. He's going to break everyone's Lego. That
Mhm.
would be something like, really? Do we want to say that about Paul?
Mhm.
Does that really feel kind for Paul right now? Or do we want to give Paul the opportunity to show us that he's doing amazing with working through his feelings of feeling like his Lego structure isn't as wonderful as, I forget the other little boy's name I made up. Right? So you really, I might have went on a tangent there. I
No, no,
apologize.
no, that's good because I did want to talk about, I think that touches on like what kids can do to help themselves as well. Like and it's so important, the boundaries, the practice of boundaries, because a lot of we're seeing right now that a lot of people don't understand how to stand up for themselves. And they feel so, it brings up a lot of fear and anxiety when they feel that something is wrong. They don't like what's being done to them, but they don't know what to do. And I actually in my online class yesterday, I played a video where Bruce Lee was talking about, what how he figured out how to move. And he said people don't come and pay him to learn like karate or something. What they come to learn is how to express themselves. Because if you're feeling like you're saying, if there's an aggressive energy and it's like excitement energy, if you know yourself really well, you know how your body functions, you know what it is that you're feeling, that type of energy, then you learn, like when you're growing up, you learn how to express it physically. That's your manifestation. So if you're frustrated or you're jealous and you do this action where you kick over somebody's Legos, and then maybe your feedback is, oh, that's not so great, and that didn't accomplish really what you wanted, because then it just kept perpetuating that feeling and it was just frustration upon frustration. But then they get a chance to turn it around and take that, what initially is an uncomfortable energy, because they haven't learned how to express it in a way that's going to help them, and now they've got the opportunity to do it. And they're like, oh, well, if I keep doing this, I'm going to keep getting it right back at me. And either it's going to be myself who's going to keep acting it over and over until I get stronger responses back and back, or I can notice that I'm not really getting what I want out of this and I can change it, which is really cool. Um, there was something else you mentioned too, and it was the kids feeling like they were heard. And this is what I want to touch on with what parents can do, like with their kids, because I, what we're seeing with these increases in depression and anxiety and suicide rates with children right now. I think a lot of that can stem from just feeling like you're not being openly listened to, like nobody's understanding, nobody knows where you're at, and so that then closes in kind of. And I wonder if you want to talk a bit about, as the adults, like what can the adults do, and then for the kids when they feel that way, what can they do to help themselves?
So I actually wrote some stuff down because I was like, because I know I could think about all many things because I know who I am as a person.
Mm.
I have a lot of wonderful thoughts. I'm a big communicator with my mouth and my body. I'm very animated all the time, so I act out a lot of stuff and role play a lot of things. I role play a lot about like being in someone's space or
Mhm.
boundaries and how I feel. So I will, have a big, make a big sound or exaggerate it so kids can get the perspective of like, if I'm hurt, I'm like,
Mm.
like all of these things. And I think one of the most profound things that I can really share is we tell ourselves lots of stories.
Mhm.
We are the best storytellers on the planet to ourselves. And like, if whether you want to say I actually labeled my four little things that I was like, so I was labeled with anxiety disorder, manic depression, and
Mhm.
PTSD through my
Mhm.
life journey.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, I named these feelings
Yeah.
and I wrote these feelings out. And what they meant to me is if I was having a conversation with them. I
Mm.
was like, one of them is Sasha, and she was kind of like my sort of lack of self-esteem and love. And she was searching for love in all kinds of wrong places. I could write a song about it. And I remember having a conversation with her, like, what did you need?
Mm.
And how did we not communicate to be on the same page? And I have a couple more of these. And I remember my friend said, well, do you think that was bipolar? I'm like, I'm sure I would have been diagnosed with that. But no, it was healing
Yeah.
and wonderful because
Yeah.
we'll keep playing those scenarios
Mm.
where Sasha is the one that's looking for love and insecure and doesn't know her worth and puts up with kind of not so kind men or whatever you would tell yourself. And we are doing the same thing to our children
Mhm.
in a way that we're living out that same pattern and they watch the same thing.
Mhm.
So we know I really kind of say like listen and really being present and watching your conversations that you tell yourself and that your children are watching, right? Like how like my spouse and I will have very different opinion in the car. I try very hard not to have road rage.
Mhm.
When I'm in the car, it's like a little party. We have all kinds of music happening, and we embrace a traffic jam by looking outside and figuring out like we don't have tablets or movies or anything
Mhm.
playing in the car, but it would be something that, or we have a meaningful conversation.
Mhm.
My spouse, on the other hand, he's like, oh my God. Da, 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 da. So, and my daughter now will say, Daddy, that's not how you're supposed to act in a traffic jam. That kind of aggression will only make you get in an accident. And then he looks at me and looks at her and he's like, because she spends more time with me in the
Yeah.
car, right? So it's funny because, and honoring what she says.
Mhm.
And then he'll say, oh, you're right, honey bun. You're right. Daddy's not doing a very good job.
Mhm.
And not being upset about that child, saying
Mhm.
that to you. Let them call you out because sometimes we need it.
Mhm.
My children call me out all the time when I'm like, I'm not running the school good enough. People think I should have more academics. Oh my God, what am I doing? And my second born, he'll say, Mom, you started as a nonprofit. You
Mhm.
worked for the school board. You quit your job. You started with 3 kids 3 years ago, and now you have 25 all by yourself. I'll be, thanks, honey.
So sweet.
Right? Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. You'll remind me. So
Yeah.
what I kind of wrote is like, listen to them always.
Mm.
Stay in tune and tapped in
Mm.
all the time. Like when you're in the kitchen doing dishes and you think they're in their room and you're going on, oh my God, my stupid job. I hate the people I work
Mm.
and they're just, that's the language that we're telling them that we're
Mhm.
just going to whine and complain about our problems and we're never going to make a change. Because in their head, they're like, you keep going to that job though, Mom.
Yes.
Why are you complaining about it? They may not be sharing it with you,
Mhm.
but they are. And then what are we teaching them? That eventually they're going to be, whether you want to say settle, they're going to settle for the spouse or settle for the job or settle for their mother-in-law, settle for the neighbor. Because like really be true to what, like, I don't ever say anything that I don't mean or I won't say to your face.
Mhm.
So I said to you, I'm really not liking the way, so me and you are conversating, and I'm like, oh, my neighbor Sally, gosh, every time she comes over, she lets her dog poop on my lawn. I hate her, hate her, hate her. And I keep saying that to you, and my daughter hears.
Mhm.
And then she watches as that little dog comes over and poops on my lawn, and I'm all angry and now aggressive inside my house over the dishes.
Mhm.
But really, it's about little Sally over there not caring about my dog, right? Her dog poop.
Mhm.
If I said that and then Sally comes over, oh, I heard you were complaining about the dog poop, then I want to honor that in front of my daughter.
Mhm.
You're right, I did, Sally. You know what? I should have really came over a couple of days ago because it's really frustrating me and
Mhm.
it's really upsetting me. So I'd
Mhm.
really love it if you could just try to like let the dog like pick up the dog poo because then my child stands in it, whatever it might be.
Right.
Then my daughter's watching me advocate for myself.
Mhm.
not in a mean way, where when we kind of do it the other way, passive aggressively, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
then your child's learning a passive aggressive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And then your child is going to interpret that with the little girl who always has the, my daughter used to say there was like this granola bar thingy that they used to have in these fruit snackies that she wasn't allowed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And all of a sudden she'd be like, oh, she always gets fruit snacks and I don't. I hate my mom for it. Right. And they're learning almost the same language or the same
Mm-hmm.
sort of concept of self-talk that we're doing. So
Mm-hmm.
what I want to say is then I'm always saying reflect.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of reflect on where your children are that day and who they are at this particular moment. It's not about a grade level. It's really about developmental readiness. Think about ourselves. I know that I was 13 and I was like that little girl who still looked about 8. And all the other girls around me, and I tried to bring myself up to them. Like they
Mm-hmm.
were like getting boyfriends. They were, oh, I don't know if you froze. Oh,
Yep,
there you
we're
go.
good.
We want our children to kind of be, oh, really great and proud of who they are at this particular time and moment, right now, right today, right as I'm speaking with you.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling today? And what does that look like? Tomorrow is a new day, and never carrying what happened today into tomorrow. So,
Mm-hmm.
kind of what I'm saying is that then looking at what that means. If it's something that is, maybe a behavior that is like, oh my gosh, where is this coming from? They're angry, they just broke something, they're yelled at their brother, they seem depressed,
Mm-hmm.
they won't get out of bed, they're just watching YouTube videos, they're just playing their game. Finding that need is being met somehow.
Mm-hmm.
A need is being met somehow.
Yes.
So if it is just they're in their own cyber world at this moment, how can you change that without an argument?
Mm-hmm.
So I really always want to say is like, so redirect or connect.
Mm-hmm.
So either redirect the sort of unwanted emotion or behavior or so that really there's never a consequence. There is a natural consequence. So they'll say the redirection is my son. We went out to Nations and we went to this crystal shop and I said, oh, I'm going, but he was on the computer. And then when I got back, like, you didn't tell me. I'm like, no, I did.
Yes.
Chose not to come.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. That's it. His consequence was, oh, I didn't really be in tune with what my mom said. I just assumed she was probably saying nonsense and I tuned her out. I'm not going to like be upset or lecture or fight.
Mm-hmm.
I got you a few things, but next time you can pick up some more of the
Mm-hmm.
stuff that you really love at this grocery store or connect. So,
Mm-hmm.
hey guys, I just went to the grocery store and I got us our favorite stuff to make a meal. I can guarantee you everybody's going to come off that computer and make
Yeah.
this special meal.
Yeah.
Or I just got, I don't know, really cool card game. We're actually playing this card game. It's periodic table and it's ninja game. We're
Mm-hmm.
loving it. Right? Oh, I got the game. I brought it home. You guys want to play? Or I bring in my family with music, so
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. So redirect or connect, however that is for your specific family, your specific needs. We are a family that does a lot of dancing and music. We don't have a couch, so we like do yoga and
Mm-hmm.
lay on the floor together and just having wonderful conversations. But whatever is good for your family and feeds everybody's spirit, everybody's soul purpose and alignment, whether that's walking, hiking. We're big hikers. We go off grid a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And when I go off grid a lot, it's beautiful to see, 22-year-old, 17-year-old, 10-year-old children all playing together. Like they're all like little kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would say about that. And then for kids, giving them that validation of emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So really honoring it in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
So if it comes out, let's say an aggression, I hear a lot of people like, let them punch the pillow. It's getting out the same thing. I see it a tiny bit different because the punching is the same kind of action, right? Its intention is to kind of hit something and get that feeling out, and it's still in a fist form.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I want to let go of the fist. I don't want the fist there, but I want the same feeling of extending that emotion out of our soul or out of our body or out of our cell system, because we know that that'll continue them and make them sick. So if we're in that state of all the time, like this, and our fish, like, and whether it's frustrating to parents, school, bully, whatever's going on, that is going to harbor and open our vibration up for infection. So we have all kinds of, I'll share. So I'll really like work is like, it's like breathing, the visualization, reconnection, and practice. It is important that they're practicing. So I'll show you a few of the things we have. We're actually making a couple of these. This is something called a storm jar that we created about 5 years ago. And it, I think this one's my daughter's. She wrote, "I love me." So she's got herself a positive affirmation on top, an intention and purpose of what her storm jar is. We do a lot of colors. So her purpose is purple was to get back to calm, right? So I'm angry, I'm aggressive. This week and next week, I think we're going to do the both. We're going to do the opposite emotion that we're wanting to relieve and then putting in the emotion that we want to replace. So let's say it's anger. So she wants to relieve the anger and she wants to replace it with the calm. So you would shake your jar and you're like, so if you look, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, hopefully. You kind of see that all of the emotions are spinning within the jar. And as we breathe, visualize our feeling going away and our validation of what is happening. We want to validate why we're angry. With all that breath, the storm will stop, just like in the jar. It stops within our body and it just within the jar. So that's one of our techniques. These are amazing. Tim Hortons jars are really great, the juice containers, because I don't think I have one around the classroom right now. But that one's a great one. We also love music. So drumming it out, whatever it might be. And then getting it to a soft breaths, right? Like getting them, and then you can know. And then what this happens is if you're very in tune, the faster a child's shaking this, the more I think that I might be able to enter and need to support or just observe.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's no fun to have someone in your space when you're feeling this way. So just let this play out. If this is not hurting anyone, they're not throwing it, it's just themselves, leave it. This is not hurting anyone, just themselves. Sorry, I don't know how loud that is. Right? But then letting them have the opportunity to be ready and be like, you know what's happening? I think I'm ready to chat. Okay. What's happening? Well, I was really upset this morning because my mom and dad were fighting in the car. And I hate when I come here and that happens. Oh, I understand. Sometimes our parents do that, right? And we also have, so we have tambourines, we have rain sticks. This one's a good one. We have a lot of like crystals and stones that you can paint yourself. And another one we do is a breath stone. So we have a whole bunch of different sort of stones. This is my daughter's that she made, Speed Love. We have just regular ones that have like shapes and grooves and all kinds of wonderful things in it that they can look at, feel, process, send some of the negative stuff that they want, because we talk a lot about forest bathing and energy absorption through our feet and giving it back to the earth, into a tree, exchanging it, giving our problems to a tree or the earth or the ground or the clouds. And then they're able to like kind of press it out, right? Like, I want to feel this. I want to be this. And having that language, whatever it might be, I'm mad at my brother, and focusing really on the feeling. And we also kind of do where they can kind of put it on their belly and breathe out the stone, and push out the stone. We also have a couple of these around the classroom. So really kind of sitting with their own thoughts and process and visualizing what they want to feel instead of the other one, and visualizing what that feeling looks like to them. So, if I was to think about my brother took the apple, right? So I'm like, okay, so I can see my brother in here. I can see him taking the apple, how it made me feel, and then seeing maybe, you know what? I've never even told him I wanted that apple. I've never even shared with him I wanted that apple. And what I want to do maybe tomorrow, when I know tomorrow is going to come, and we teach them constantly about what that looks like and how it feels, so that they're able to, like I said before, put tangible stuff on it, on that feeling, on that emotion, on what it represents. So we all, and we do a lot of, we love our feathers. So another one is to lay down get your feather and your breath, really calm your breath, and then think about where your feather would go. So where do I want it to go? I want it, to go back into my heart center. We talk a lot about chakras here as well, but back into my heart center. What part of my body is kind of really hurting? So if it's my mind, then I'm going to I want to soothe it out. I want to soothe out those feelings. And then I want to like brush it away, right? So I'm brushing away my thoughts. These are, my brother keeps telling me I'm dumb. I'm not dumb. I'm beautiful and I'm smart and I'm in my own path and my own time, and I will, whatever it might be, I'm going to learn to read. And then I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to learn to read. I'm learning to read. I'm going to read. I'm beautiful. So we're leaving it out, and then we're bringing it back in, right? And we also have some beautiful little like faceless dolls. So she's kind of like the little fairy. She comes out of the woods whenever we need her. And then this is, we have a couple different colors of this one. And we do a lot of color representation, a lot of energy work here. We have essential oils and diffusers and crystals, and we do, intention and purpose and full moon ceremonies, all kinds of beautiful stuff. And having her have a conversation, right? Like, how's it going? What's going on with you today? Oh, I don't really like that my brother is always taking the apple. Oh, and that my brother, he always took the grapes. I really understand that. And I don't know what to do about it. Maybe. So sometimes if a child doesn't want to work through that, they can just kind of act it out. So really just letting all of those feelings kind of present themselves in a really safe manner so that they're not feeling that it's judged in any way. And then for us as parents, owning our own. Like, I can't say that enough. Like, owning it and having our children show up and stop talking sometimes so much. I can say, because my son Forrest will say it all the time. Oh my God, Mom, I don't know what your face is meaning and you're talking too much and I can't process it. And I'm like, thank you for telling me. Because I'm just like in lecture mode, right? And my kids will be like, oh my gosh, my mom and her spiritual stuff. I'd be like, oh, I'm sorry, honey. Okay, you work through your stuff. Go play some music. Go pound a drum. Come back when you're ready. Let them come back when they're ready. Nobody can have a conversation. Think about any heated argument you've ever had with your spouse, coworker, your friend, your mom, your dad, sibling, whatever. We are snake tongue when we're like that. It's not going to do us any good. So letting them in a healthy way lay on the carpet. So we do have carpets here where children get in sort of a fetal position if they want. Once they sit up, then we know we're ready. And then really honoring with it. Listen to what they have to say. And if you don't know what to say, then just say, I hear you, and hug them. Because we always end with that embrace. No judgment, forgiveness, and love and compassion, because we are one on this plane. We are one on humanity, and we are constantly affecting each other. And I really couldn't, I guess the biggest part of why I've created this school is because I couldn't be contributing to it anymore. I couldn't, and don't get me wrong, I make tons of mistakes and I own it. I'm like, oh gosh, guys, Stephanie is screwing up today. I think I need and they're like, we'll make you a cup of tea. Just sit down. It's okay. And they'll like take it upon themselves because they see the change in my own demeanor, because I'm real and raw about it. I'm like, I slept really bad. I'm feeling very overwhelmed today. It's been raining for 2 days and I need to go outside and I need to take off my shoes and let go of this energy and let's dance it out today. And I'm right there with them and I'm shaking my own storm drum. Right. So yeah, I'm sorry. I could go on forever.
Well, I'd love to talk to you now about you. I know you have this school, but there's another thing that you've started to put together, and I'd love to talk about that. You called it Alternative Path. So why don't you share what this is about? And for people who are parents or educators who want to get involved, we'll tell them where they can contact you.
Perfect. Okay. So I know 3 years ago I quit the board and I did this, and I knew one thing ahead of time. It was hard to find a lot of schools. And I thought there's no way for me, as someone who just quit my job and got rid of $3,700 worth of income, that I can pay for a private alternative school. It was always something I wanted to do. My second children at the time were in grade 2 and just finishing grade 9. And I thought, well, I'll just make it
Mhm.
myself. That was a long process.
Mhm.
There was a lot of research, a lot of stuff that would be very overwhelming. Sometimes
Mhm.
I was very defeated. Like I was like, I can't do this. This sucks. This seems hard. And there's not many, like they're starting to grow. So I'm starting to see that more of us are starting to show up. And it isn't about competition for me. I really don't want to compete with anybody. I think we all have a beautiful, unique gift.
Mhm.
And if we're coming from a beautiful place of compassion and love for humanity and for the change that this planet so deserves and our children, I really, our philosophy here is that we are creating, entrepreneurs, visionaries, artists, creative beings. We're not talking about, academic scholars. We're talking about real life people who want
Mhm.
to live purposeful. So, and the more that I've been seeing over the last year is that there's so many of us happening and we don't know each other. And
Yeah.
I really want us to know and support each other,
Mhm.
not only to support overflow, right? So if someone finds me, they're like, oh, but I'm from, you know, Fort Erie, or I'm from Tilsonburg, or wherever. I want us to be able to have one center location where anybody on an alternative path can find support.
Mhm.
So we have 3 sections. I literally have just, this is about a week old, but it's been brewing for about 6 months.
Mhm.
And kind of, hold on, let me find my note. So we have 3 sort of titles, and I'm not sure exactly what it'll all look, but we do
Mhm.
need to think about someone maintaining the site,
Mhm.
someone bringing there for intakes. And one of the things that I really thought about is creating a huge party,
Mhm.
like the one we all come together, we pay for this. No one's making money off it, but we're
Mhm.
all one support system that could be like, oh, I know this person and this person, and
Right.
send that person. And we have a huge gathering where we all come together and create the most beautiful vibration. That's all I can think about, like at a beach or at a campground, whatever it might be. So, our first one is kind of learning my way. So,
Mhm.
that would be anybody that runs a school like me, an alternative
Mhm.
school, a forest school, maybe even Montessori school, and that people can find a private school hub.
Mhm.
I know that you spoke with a lovely other lady named Stephanie who's doing Roots and Wings.
Mhm.
So her stuff could be on there, and all these beautiful places all over Canada, so that if anyone moves from place to place, they have
Mhm.
somewhere that they can go to. So say I'm going to move now to Alberta, I can already find the hub in Alberta that I'm already going to join, because we're
Mhm.
all in the same space, because we all have the same values and core beliefs that children are in charge of their learning.
Mhm.
Children will learn, and we are just here to love and support them always.
Mhm.
But also, then I have learning on the fly, which is for our, like, say it's not really a private school, but it's a learning hub, or
Mhm.
it's a outschooled group, or a homeschooling group, or a social pod.
Mhm.
Maybe it's just a book club for kids or an art class, but
Right.
it isn't something that people would attend all the time. It's like an a la carte to learning, right? So I'm
Right.
learning on the fly. I want to find a cooking class.
Yeah.
I want to find karate class. So
Mhm.
those things would be under that list.
Mhm.
And then it's kind of learning as we go. And this is for all of us as a collective.
Right.
So, really, this would be where we'd have support teams. We'd
Mhm.
have people sharing resources. I'd really like to put a spot in there, which is a mentorship to
Mhm.
mentor other parents and other facilitators who really want to create a school like the one that I'm created, right?
Right.
So, really helping them navigate through red tape, the language on how to use back to the ministry. Because if
Mhm.
you saw the email I got yesterday, I'm so sad, but they're talking vaccines already. So
Mm.
that we're frontline workers and that we need to have vaccines. So
Wow.
as you can see, I'm like covering my like chakras, because I'm like, no, it's not coming into me, right? So being able to support each other in these kind of private hubs, whether we have meetups or
Mhm.
Zoom calls or just even YouTube videos that you just need
Right.
to like, okay, Stephanie, like, how are you doing this? I'm gonna have a video in there where it's like, you dance your butt off, mama.
Yeah.
You got this no matter what. I have a beautiful playlist that is just like I would play every morning when I was building the school. And even some days when I'm having a hard time, I put it on and I'm like, yeah, you got this. There's a bigger purpose and mission that you're on. You're just a
Mhm.
vessel. right?
Mhm.
To bring in this beauty. And I think the more like spaces that we're able to kind of come together, the more that we're able to really change what's happening, in
Yeah.
all fairness. That's really where everything comes from for me. It's I've had many labels and I'm so tired of them. And I
Yeah.
really don't want us living in those labels anymore.
Mm.
And just honoring authentic being, truth and communication
Mhm.
and sovereignty. Like at the village, one of our things, oops, one of our things is that we live and breathe this mantra. We're
Mhm.
always truthful, respectful, and kind
Mm.
all the time here.
Yeah.
It's okay who you are. You don't have to like everybody at all the time, but
Mm.
we're always in that space. I don't like you right now, but I'm going to be kind and walk away from you,
Right.
right? I'm going to
Mhm.
respect that you're feeling unliked, but so am I. And I'm going to respect myself. I'm going to
Mhm.
respect my environment. I'm going to respect your choices and my choices. And it doesn't mean that either of us are bad or good
Mhm.
or right or wrong, right?
Yeah.
So that's really huge for us. And that's the only thing I kind of want for everybody to be able to have a spot to share, to get support
Mhm.
when it's harder or scary
Mm.
or there's challenges so that we can do that. So if you want
Mhm.
to reach out to that, there's an email. It's called yourpath8
Mhm.
at gmail.com.
Yeah.
We are working on intakes for that and then growing the website
Mhm.
and making it so that everybody's able to kind of find, there'll be like a write up. You could put a write up about what you have to offer, what that looks like, and we'll just keep filtering families into that so that then the connection can happen on their own
Mhm.
with you, whoever it might be, whoever's in those lists and who are in those groups, right? So that everybody can kind of stand in their own
Mhm.
passions, their own purpose, and sharing their light and love for real.
Yeah, yeah, that's wonderful. With the email, it's the number 8, right? Your path number 8. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the
Okay.
number eight. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
gonna
written
have
down.
that in. Yeah, I'll have that in the description for everybody, so they could check it out. And I just want to thank you for everything that you've created, Stephanie, because I know it's so hard for people to have ideas and then to put it into practice, because that's really where the challenge comes in, where you have to adjust, you have your feedback and all of that, but you've created a beautiful school and it sounds like your kids love it a lot. And I'm excited for the Alternative Path website to connect people who are doing similar things, and we can, this is a time where there is a lot of awful stuff going on, but at the same time we have this space where we can make a change, and we're the community. And if we put our energy into that direction, we could say, hey, parents, teachers, if you're looking for a better alternative that aligns with your values, look over here, or look over there, look over there, look over there. We've got like all these little places opening up, and get involved, start your own thing, and all that. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.